Hello everyone, Refia here with a quick update on Soaring Blades and Jet Boots. So we're gonna be talking about the tech arts for Bouncer right now. There's gonna be an uncut video, a little minimal editing because I'm lazy. So basically, we're gonna start with Soaring Blades here. So for her Rampaging Harder, we have Type 1 here. Makes you immune to knockbacks and being launched during your Photon Art, your Rampaging Harder, and increases its Pinion Blade accumulation by 10%. This is actually not good because with the 30-second cooldown, and if you play well, based from my experience, if you do a lot of counters correctly and everything like that, you really don't need Type 1 to get extra Pinion Blade gauge right before the cooldown goes off. You usually have the Pinion Blade gauge already filled up. And then Type 2, I did some calcs about this, but I don't think this is worth anything because Type 3 is a permanent 2% DPS boost during, well, I'm looking at my spreadsheet real quick. It's a 2% DPS increase during not FB and a 3.5 DPS increase during FB. So that's Type 3, right? And for Type 2, over Type 2 versus Type 3, Type 2 is only a 6.7% advantage over Type 2. And during Fanatic Blade during downs, it's only a 3.6% increase. Which can matter, but I don't think it will beat like a constant 2% DPS increase over all the time. Basically. This is basically thinking about how Slayer sub versus Fighter sub, the difference between them. Slayer sub is much better because it's more consistent, because it's almost all the time. So yeah. And then Roaring Pheasant. And then, Type 3 is our go-to. As I said before, it's like a 2% increase all the time, and then a 2.5%, a 3.5% increase during Fanatic Blade. So it is pretty good, really, really good. It even gets better when you get more BAPs in your combos because of the hit stops. So Harrier Type 3, the go-to. Type 1 and Type 2 is very, very, very not worth it. It's only Type 3 that's worth here. And then for Roaring Pheasant is very interesting because it really changes the properties of the move. Type 1 is the one that changes the property of the first part, and then Type 2 is the one that changes the property of the shifted part of Descent. So let me show this off first. So for Type 1, it increases the duration but decreases the distance. It essentially cancels out each other so that it retains its original distance, but you go to your location, your maximum range, a lot longer than usual. Makes it very clunky to use in scenarios where you would use it to gap close before. So this increases also the number of hits of first part by 12s, doubling it to 24. I think from my calculations, it adds an extra 1.5 seconds to the whole animation. And the DPS is around 420, which is actually just as much as a Harrier and Weapon Action Loop. So it's actually pretty good DPS if you can manage to land all of the hits here. Here. See how clunky it is because you're not used to it. The distance is different. Is the difference different? I don't know. Probably the same. It feels weird and feels sluggish. Its main usage lies in Malignant Dark Pulse Aegis, because you can like pre-fire this a lot longer, so you get more hits in before like doing a baps to the enemy, to the boss. It's mostly for pre-fire stuff where it's most effective, and it's still effective even without the pre-fire stuff. It's just very clunky to use. And then the second one, type 2, I think type 2 is probably the go-to for in general. It really doesn't change the properties of the first part, only the shifted part of the pheasant. So let me show an example. It increases like the number of hits to like 14 to 24, and it increases the DPS to, even with a decreased potency, it still does like 424 DPS, which is a big increase than before. I'm not sure about these numbers. This is like my estimate based on my testing. So this move is now pretty good for like extending your PP when you can. So if you know the boss or the enemy or the part that you're targeting will stay in place for like 4 seconds, feel free to spin in place because it's like conserving a lot of PP rather than doing another harrier. Don't do this in Fanatic Blade because it is like the worst move during Fanatic Blade. It does like so little number of like extra blades. Like here. It only does like 1 volley of big hits, so it's not good. So avoid it during Fanatic Blade, but during outside of Fanatic Blade, it's really good for extending your PP. It's not a big increase in DPS, but it is worth doing to get more consistency. And then we talk about Type 3. Type 3 is useless and should never... so what it does is just increases the Pinion Blade gauge accumulation. This is not great at all because, as I said before, with Type 1 Harrier, you really don't need the extra Pinion Blade gauge accumulation, and this like Roaring Pheasant is not a move that you actually spam a lot unless it's like MDFA, Malignant Dark False Aegis for Bapsing. But even then, you would rather use Type 1 in there. So this is not good at all. Okay, now I'm gonna talk briefly about jet boots. I don't main jet boots, but this is what I can tell from like I compare it from like actual jet boot mains. Type 1 increases the range of the move, so it's pretty good for like AoEing. I don't know how much of a grade it is, but you know. Type 2 is the go-to because it basically makes your Valiant Gale. Press it 3 times and you get your Jet Sweep Jolt immediately up. The text here is very, very weird, I think, but it basically says that you get more Jet Sweep Jolt gauge every time you use the non-variant attack. And then for Type 3, I don't think this is worth anything. Cross Drive is not that good of a damage tool, and you also have, I don't know, Valiant Gale being not a good damage tool in itself. So Type 1, AoE, Type 2 in general, just to like filler, so you can get your Jet Sweep Jolt really fast. And then Type 3 is for do not bother. Okay, for Fierce Wave, Type 1 is also AoE. Type 2 is also the same as Valiant Gale. It is more for Jet Sweep Jolt. And it also increases the DPS by a lot, and you don't need to like show it as much as before because it has a much longer duration now. And Type 3 is not useless as well. Same with Valiant Gale, it's the same effect, having a Trust Drive after a normal attack. So yeah. So in summary, for Rampaging Harrier, Type 3 is the go-to. Type 2 might be useful in some situations where the enemy gets downed a lot, but I don't think there's any. And then for Roaring Pheasant, type 1 and type 2 are good. Type 1 is mostly for pre-firing. Type 2 is mostly for in general because it doesn't affect your gap closer Roaring Pheasant, while giving you an option to extend your PP during downs. Type 3 is not worth doing. And then for Violent Gale, type 1 is for AoE, type 2 is for increased jet crit jolt, is like the recommended. Type 3 is not recommended. Type 1 is for AoE, type 2 is for the recommended for bossing, and then type 3 is basically also not recommended. So I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to say here. And thank you for watching, and like and subscribe. Yeah. Bye bye. Thank you.